Here, Donald Trump still with that wide lead, 56% to Ron DeSantis at 22, Ramaswamy at 5, Pence at 4, and down the list from there. Part of his challenger's argument is that if you go back to the 2018 election, every 2 years with Trump as the either titular head or actual head of the Republican Party, Republicans have underperformed in those national elections. And yet, when you look at the polling, it shows that Republican voters believe that he's going to win. And part of the appeal of Donald Trump is that he is a winner.
Well, those losses in the midterms and eventually the presidency are not are disappointing performances and losses. They're real. They happened. There's no doubt about it. There's no way around it. And the case can be made that he's a loser. Because since he got elected in 2016, he's compiled a string of them.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
For the first time, I find myself agreeing with a Fox News host. Trump woke up to salt in his wounds as once loyal cult follower Brit Hume described the former president during his recent interview as, quote,
and the case can be made that he's a loser.
Le who? The her.
Which, when you think about it, is pretty tame. But for the once Trump propaganda network, well, it's a little more than that.
Here, Donald Trump still with that wide lead, 56% to Ron DeSantis at 22, Ramaswamy at 5, Pence at 4, and down the list from there. Are Donald Trump's opponents running a conventional campaign, and is there anything they should be doing differently to change this dynamic?
Well, to look at the persistence of Trump's lead, and it's been in this range for many, many weeks now, you'd almost believe that the old rules of politics about how you win elections have been repealed, and Mr. Trump does not have to abide by them. Indeed, he doesn't. He continually talks about how he didn't lose in 2020, which is, most people believe he did lose.
First of all, I won in 2020 by a lot, okay? Let's get that straight. I won in 2020.
You know that this,
and if you look at all of the tapes, if you look at everything that you want to look at, you take a look at Truth to Vote, where they have people stuffing the ballot boxes on tapes, or
Mr. President,
let's go to recent. Well, wait a minute.
I guess a lot of his hardcore supporters do not. But it's hornbook politics, that you're supposed to. You're supposed to talk about the future, and the elections are not about the past, they're about the future. Well, Trump doesn't seem to care about that, and look at where he stands. The other candidates are doing the conventional things, and the numbers haven't budged. Now, maybe they will, but they look pretty daunting in Trump's favor right now. I'm not sure how long that'll last, but it's lasted a long time so far.
Part of his challenger's argument is that if you go back to the 2018 election, every 2 years with Trump as the either titular head or actual head of the Republican Party, Republicans have underperformed in those national elections. And yet, when you look at the polling, it shows that Republican voters believe that he's going to win. And part of the appeal of Donald Trump is that he is a winner. Where does that disconnect go, and how can Trump's opponents make that case that perhaps on winnability that's an issue?
Well, those losses in the midterms and eventually the presidency are not are disappointing performances and losses. They're real. They happened. There's no doubt about it. There's no way around it. And the case can be made that he's a loser, because since he got elected in 2016, he's compiled a string of them. Or either he or his supported candidates have lost too many races. But the history of primaries suggests that people don't cast strategic votes in favor of the candidate they think most likely will win. By and large, they don't. And right now, people are voting their hearts, and they tend to vote in primaries for the candidates that they feel closest to, or that they'd like to see president. They're not voting about who's they think could get elected. That may come back to haunt the Republican Party in 2024, because you look at the Democrats and what they think of the race. They think that Trump is going to win the nomination, and they think Biden will beat him because he did beat him.
And then in the wake of it, Brit Hume spoke with Bear and further reiterated just how unhinged the former president was, specifically when discussing the accusations of mishandling classified documents.
One is that his answers on the matters of the law seem to me to verge on incoherent. He seemed to be saying that the documents were really his and that he didn't give them back when he was requested to do so and when they were subpoenaed because, he wasn't ready to because he hadn't sorted them and separated the classified information or whatever from his golf shirts or whatever he was saying. It was not altogether clear what he was saying, but he seemed to believe that the documents were his, that he had declassified them, evidence to the contrary, and therefore he could do whatever he wanted with them, which I don't think is going to hold up in court. Secondly, when you asked him what his pitch was to the kind of suburban female voter that he had lost in 2020, his answer was to talk about how he didn't lose the 2020 election. I don't think that's an appealing message for the future, and I'm sure his legal and political advisors were wincing all the way through his answers on both those points.
Here's the thing, while Republicans are trying to play, look over there, it's all a means to deflect from the reality that, number one, their frontrunner is in a world of shite. Number two, the Biden administration continues to prove it is far more popular in the polls.
It really depends who's running in 2024. This is all candidate-based. And if it's Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, I think it's going to be fine for the Democrats. We're an incredibly polarized country. I don't think anyone is ever going to have a landslide. But when you look at all of the data, it suggests that Trump, if he's in the race, he makes it about Trump. And people have very clear views about that. His diehard supporters, you see him gaining in the primaries and falling in the general election. And Biden picking up more independents, more suburban voters, people who could be swayed back by a more moderate Republican candidate, potentially. But this is, and if you look at the NBC approval ratings, it's like a race to the bottom. So Kamala's approval rating is higher than Nikki Haley's, Mike Pence's, Ron DeSantis's, Tim Scott's, all people who want to be the Republican candidate. And Donald Trump's net negative rating makes Kamala look like the most successful woman in history. It's negative 56. Right? So this is the guy who seems to be sweeping the primary season with, each new bit of information about another indictment coming. I mean, last night we all heard audio of him showing people a classified document. He lied to Bret Baier, right? He said there was no document. We heard shuffling of papers, and he sounds like a teenager. Hey, guys, isn't this cool? Look what I got. Talking about the nation's secrets, not a personal thing.
What about her, though?
It's obviously that she doesn't resonate with the American public, that it's not, whatever is happening right now is not working. I don't know if showing her off more makes a difference, but it all comes down to what are the names going to be on the top of the ballot? And if Donald Trump is the name under the R, I don't know if talking about the net negatives that Kamala has makes any difference.
And the case can be made that he's a loser.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.